Hey guys, welcome back. I just had a meeting with my accountant yesterday, and I wanted to talk about what I learned. Over the past couple months, I've racked up some questions, and I finally got to meet with her locally and talk about all this dropshipping stuff. So I'm just going to tell you guys what I learned about my specific situation for taxes for dropshipping on Facebook Marketplace, specifically Facebook Marketplace, okay? These would be different if I was dropshipping on something like Amazon or eBay, because then you're worried more about state to state related taxes. So I had two main concerns. One of them was just like my own personal income tax. So like when you're self-employed, it's not like when you have a regular 9-to-5 job or even a part-time job where they take out withholding and retirement and stuff like that. When you're self-employed, you just get money and you're just responsible for that money at the end of the year, and sometimes even quarterly, depending on your situation. So I've had people comment saying things like, there's penalties if you don't pay your personal income tax quarterly, which is true for some situations. It just all depends on how much money you make. And, there's sales tax related things where since you're collecting sales tax from state to state, that all changes. It's really confusing. But before I get into all that, let's just take a second, like the video if you haven't already, and please subscribe. That helps me out a lot. But yeah, let's get started. So, personal income tax. Do you have to pay it? Do you just wait till the end of the year when you get a 1099 from Facebook? Do you pay quarterly as you go because there's penalties if you don't do that? You might have heard those things. So to kind of set this up, it's all dependent on your situation. Like I said, my situation is I'm self-employed. I don't have any normal jobs. I have a business that has nothing to do with any of this stuff. And then I have this, which is another business. And then I have other little side hustles that I do, and it's all of my income that I generate from me is all not like tax withheld in any way. I have to be responsible for that. Now, I'm married and I file jointly with my wife every year for tax time, and she has a job that takes out taxes with her money that she gets. That, when we come together, all of our money, half of it has withholding tied to it, which just means, money's automatically taken out because it needs to be withheld for the government, whatever. Most of you know that when you have a job, taxes get deducted out of your check before you get it. Whatever you made that month is actually a little bit less because of what gets taken out. She's got a job like that. So since I don't, that means at the end of the tax year, about 50% of her stuff is taxed and mine isn't. Or 50% of the total, which is half of hers, because we're each half of the situation. We do not have dependents. We don't have kids. It's just us. So I asked my accountant about that. And again, I'm going to preface, I got to do the whole stupid YouTube thing really quick. Hold on. I am not a tax professional. Please do not take advice from a YouTuber. I can't be responsible for your guys' tax situations because everybody's is different. And I just got an opinion from my local accountant that I deal with for all of my other business stuff. So do not think that this exactly applies to you because your situation can totally be different. Don't even come at me. I'm not responsible for your life, okay? But anyway, do you have to pay quarterly or not? Hopefully I explain this okay. If you make a lot of money in self-employment, it makes more sense if you make a lot to pay quarterly estimates to the government for taxes. You want to do that because most people don't have to worry about it, but how it was explained to me is that at the end of the year, like let's say when you have a normal job and you have taxes withheld, you go through like the normal tax system every year. You see if you get a refund or if you owe money. Well, since you have taxes deducted already, you don't usually have to worry about that because at the basis of how everything works is at the end of the year, if you have more than 50% of your income isn't taxed and you owe more than 50%, that's when you can start to get penalties. So to avoid those penalties, people who make a lot of self-employment income will pay quarterly estimates to the IRS so that by the time tax time comes around, they don't that 50% margin isn't there. So it's just basically right now I don't have to worry about paying quarterly, but here in the next 6 months, if this thing grows and grows and I'm making significantly more than my wife does because it's all self-employment income, then at that point we'll start looking into paying quarterly estimates. I would highly recommend you speak to an accountant in your area. It can cost money, but it shouldn't cost more than what you can afford with the side income you're making. Because in the beginning, like I make a good little chunk of money from this already, and I already don't really have to worry about that stuff. It's just going to be normal tax guidelines next year even. So if you're brand new, don't worry about that part. It's just if you notice you're making several $1,000s a month and you've been doing it for 6 months, I would talk to somebody just to make sure your situation is good, especially if you're single and there's nobody in the picture that already withholds tax from a job, because then at that point, they're not offsetting any of your tax liability. So that's something. Also, if you have nothing to write off, if you don't have a business that has a bunch of write-offs to where you can take a loss or do any of that stuff, that's another thing. I would make sure you're talking to somebody and just make sure you have everything handled and you're doing stuff responsibly. Now, one of my next big questions I had was, okay, man, since I have another business, I already know that once a quarter, so every 4 months, I have to go in and file a sales tax return. So if I sell any physical products that I took tax with, which I don't, I have to do what's called a $0, but it's the same process. We're selling products online, and this has nothing to do with tax exempt status at all. But if we're taking in tax and then selling a product, if you had a brick and mortar store, every quarter you'd have to go in and pay sales tax to the government that you collected on their behalf. So if I had this glasses case and I bought it wholesale and didn't pay taxes on it, and then I sold this to you and the tax on this was 16 cents or something, then once a quarter, say I'd sell 10 of these, every time I sell one it's 16 cents, I just kind of have to pool that money up and then once a quarter give that money to the government and just kind of forward it to them, because that's for tax purposes. I don't get the sales tax from my own business to invest or use for personal income. Well, on online e-commerce, that can happen too. But good news, we don't really have to worry about that when we're specifically only doing Facebook dropshipping. Because if you've noticed, Facebook charges the customer sales tax and then remits it or takes it away before you even get your money. It's all on whoever holds the tax money in that pool of tax collection, basically. Facebook takes care of that for you, which means you don't have to worry about paying sales tax estimates on everything. I even have an LLC for this, and basically my LLC doesn't matter. It's more for other growth purposes down the road. It's not even tied to the Facebook dropshipping. Doesn't matter. It's great for having bank accounts and stuff and signing up for wholesalers again down the road, but you don't have to have one. So another big concern was crap, I've watched all these videos of people who dropship who have to deal with taxes, and they're telling me every month they're going in, or every other month, or however, every quarter for each state, but it ends up being every month they have to do a certain amount of states, that they have to go in and file sales tax returns in each state depending on the tax obligations, which sucks. So we don't really have to worry about that on Facebook, but other platforms you do, depending on your situation. So that's my situation. Other than that, the tax stuff is normal. You might as well be a contractor for someone's business. You're just going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. Make sure you keep track of your profit and your loss. So having a spreadsheet or using FBMFOX and being able to just export all your orders that you got, and so it shows your profits, stuff like that. I have every time I've paid for shipping on my spreadsheet, every time I've paid sales tax on my spreadsheet, and that can be written off as a business expense. So that will also take away from your income profit that you made, so it'll make it look like you made less because you're not liable for the stuff you paid to run your business, basically. So keep track of any of those things, including software fees. Like if you pay for Z-Drop or FBMFOX every month, keep track of those, because you can write those off as business expenses at the end of the year against your income. So I pretty much am doing exactly what I thought it was going to be doing. I just wanted clarification, especially because a lot of people started asking me questions and it started making me second guess things. But exactly what I thought from the beginning is pretty much exactly how it works. So no worries. It's a lot simpler. Just make sure you're keeping track of your profit and losses, basically. And at the end of the year, get your stuff handled by an accountant. And if you're making a bunch of money, like you're one of those people who's making multiple thousands of dollars a month, probably smart to start paying quarterly estimates to the government, and just make sure a tax professional signs off on that as well. So this varies state to state, family to family. Depending on your state, it could be totally different. I live in Kansas. This is just stuff based off where I live. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and like the video and subscribe, and I'll try to keep you updated on stuff that I learn. I'll see you next time.